Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah, yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah, yeah.
We are back for an in-between week session of the Low Post Podcast. I'm your host, PJ Thomas. We are here with my two lovely co-hosts, Dan Ruggiero and Shane Patrick. If you guys want to say hello, give the audience a little bit of love today.
Jane, you want to take it away first?
Just a simple, what's going on, everyone? From Jersey, though. From Jersey this time.
From Jersey.
And then I'm his neighbor up the lake for the next month or so. You know, just relaxing outside. I've got my not a doctor yet, but we've got exams in a few days to hopefully be a doctor soon. So,
and then we are also joined here today by our league commissioner, Shane considers a Hall of Famer when his career is over, Mr. Joey Zocco. Joey, go ahead, give a little love to everybody. Say what's up.
Let me just say that warmed the heart. You know, I was listening today. Shane knows how to be. Shane is like a Sour Patch, man. He's the Sour Patch of the league. He's sweet, and then he's just a pain in the ass. You know, just like. But hey,
between whistles, I'm the first person in the world.
No, you know that, Shane. But
outside the whistle, I'm great.
I am PJ. I'm honored to follow Gian on the podcast. Like, it's just fitting that I'm like right after him, especially after he was, you know, seen in our most viewed TikTok. You know, he was famous in that one. So
yes, I did send a text to Gian, and we'll get to this during the podcast, but I said, you know, did you ever think that you would be not only featured on LeBron James' Instagram, but it would be a video of you getting dunked on? And he responded and said, I'm sick. No, he doesn't want me to win the MVP. This is all part of his ploy. So, you know, we'll get there. He's going to stick to that you don't want him to win it again, that you never want him to win any awards, which is not true. Even I'm with you on that one, but you know, it's cool to have you. And, you know, it's nice to do a little bit of a merger this week between the post game show and the Low Post Pod. I think we'll have some good conversations today between the four of us. And, you know, if you guys want to do it, I do have another immaculate grid ready to go. So we could always get to that. If you guys want to do it, it's up to you guys, but let's get through some of the segments first. And then if we have some time, we can do another immaculate grid with Joey. I think because Joey's been around, he might have a little bit more insight too, as opposed to Gian. We kind of threw him into the fire last week. So,
PJ, I was going to say, Dan kicked my butt on the last one. I feel I struggled with the hard one. So I don't know, man.
Danny really crushed it. You know, Danny's one of those guys that you go to trivia with your friends and you're just waiting for that
every single week.
I don't want to toot my horn, but you bring me. It's every time.
I'll give you guys a little story. When we were at the University of Rhode Island, Danny and I would go to Rody Joe's and we would do trivia together. And let me tell you something. Danny and I, no matter who else was on our team, was a lethal combination. We used to crush it, whether there was music, sports, TV, whatever the case was. Having Danny on your team was like having that guy that, you know, that's going to give you 25, 10, and 15 every night. So it's
and then nice also to tag in on like those trivia moments, you know, like every generation has that, like, where were you when this happened? And like, you never forget where were you when Gordon Hayward shattered his ankle? We were at trivia night at Rody Joe's.
Yes, we were at trivia night at Rody Joe's, and one of our friends, Taylor, she's a great girl, but the whole bar went silent and everyone is like about to throw up, right? And she goes, what's the big deal? He just got hurt. And I remember one of my buddies absolutely cussed her out and was like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but there's a reason that everybody's quiet. So that's right. We were at Rody Joe's when Gordon Hayward snapped his ankle, first game of the year, doing trivia. So, but yeah, no, Danny's definitely the trivia wizard. So immaculate grid stuff. Danny and I do the baseball one every day together. We try to. And there's been very few occasions that we haven't gotten a perfect score, but when we do, it's usually a pretty tough one. So, you know, to get to our segments this week, you know, one of the things that we talked about last week on the podcast was implementing trades into the league. The only way that we would, you know, we talked about it and we were like, the only way you'd be able to do that is if it was like a draft league where you have capital to be able to trade with players. Because if you are just joining with a bunch of your friends, even if you guys suck, you're not going to want to trade your buddy, right? So, you know, with that idea in mind, Joey, because you're the head honcho, right? And, you know, everyone's talking about the expansion of the legacy leagues. what would something like that look for legacy leagues as far as turning it into a draft where you have every team might have a GM? So, I'm the Duyes boys GM, coach, last guy off the bench kind of guy, but you go to a combine of sorts and you have your draft order and you kind of pick. So, talk a little bit about what in your head that would look like as the guy that runs the whole operation. And then, we can kind of go with some trades that might look good in the league this year and stuff like that.
Yeah, we could definitely touch on some trades. I mean, I think I've definitely considered a draft if things got stale, like in Rhode Island, for example, right? Like we're doing 7, 8, and 9 seasons. Like it would be a different sign up process, right? Everybody would be separate. We'd kind of figure out some captains. We'd make it a whole thing, or we draft everybody, or we have a workout combine like you talked about. It's definitely been considered. I think it changes the league, right? So like kind of right now, Lob City's Lob City, but they're all boys too. You know what I mean? Like Duyes boys, you guys are all friends, like the old version, the new version, whatever. I don't appreciate the halfway crook slander about me stealing players, but we're still all, we're all close to, like, you guys, we'll have our moment to hash out some, halfway crook slander you guys have been slinging around. But no, so I mean, I think it changes the league a lot because right now teams enter for the most part. And I think that creates different types of rivalries that maybe you don't get in a draft league. Right. If I mean, there would still be rivalries because people would know each other. And especially after, let's say, 10 seasons, if we decided to change the format like that, players would have been around a while and there would still be rivalries or competitive moments between players, let's say. But the halfway crooks and Duyes boys, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, it would be different people and it just changes things. It's different. I've definitely thought about it if things got like stale or old, but I think the way it is right now is good, and I think it keeps everybody interested. And I think having like your team, even though there's different levels of competition, I think it makes it something people want to be a part of, like with their group.
I gotta ask because I'm thinking about it. I got a subway going behind me, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. But like you talked about, like maybe doing it with like a combine and one captain staying from each team. I'm thinking of the one thing we talked about last week was like if you go the route of expansion, like let's say you have so many free agents that want to sign up, you go the route of like every team gets X amount of protected players. Like in the NBA, I think it's like the couple times they've done the expansion drafts, it's like if it's a 14-man roster, they protect maybe 8 players. And if you want to adjust if you want to adjust it for like the average size of a roster in legacy leagues, that's about like
it'd probably be like 5. I mean, like
4 or 5 guys. What do you think? Like, do you think that those teams, if you do the route of like, say every team, if you have these 8 teams and you want to draft like 2 new teams, say everyone gets to protect 5 guys, like, do you think there still runs into that, like the competitiveness problem? Because you still, if Lob keeps 5 guys of their current roster, it's still Lob.
Right. And then they get to add who knows who else. Right. But I think that kind of keeps it's very funny. And that would almost start new shit between teams because like, I mean, what if they didn't keep Jose? I don't know. You know what I mean? Or like if we didn't keep Spence, right? Like, who knows, like that'd be hilarious. But obviously those people would have like a chip on their shoulder, like that would create different types of rivalries. And that would almost be something, it loses its effect if we do it this way, but it's almost like having a full draft and then letting teams keep a certain number. Maybe it's 6. Like if we redraft the whole league, then year 2 after the draft was you keep 6, and then we do kind of like we were talking about where you have an expansion draft, even though maybe you don't add teams, right? Because it's year 2 after a fantasy draft where now people kind of like keep some people, you're trading picks. It would be a lot more to keep track of. And then my only thing with that is too, I know that other leagues do that where they draft, the whole league and everyone signs up individually. That would stink if somebody paid and they get drafted to a team and they're like, I'm out, screw it. Now they just don't show up or they don't finish paying. I don't know. That was always my concern with that. Like, at least this way, from a league perspective, there is some accountability. And I mean, running a league is just great. So as you guys know, running a team is equally as fun, right? Like when you're trying to track everybody down. But at least that way, when it's your friend group, my thinking is there's some accountability where like you want to play with your friends, so you're going to pay, or like they're your actual friends, so you can't avoid them. Like, you can't just like disappear. So that's worked out well for us league wise, but imagine trading picks and players, like that'd be super fun. Yeah.
I want to talk about trades, Pete. because you have kind of opened the door to this. I want to kind of go like a round robin, and everybody, I want to think of like, if you can think of one or two pieces that any specific team should acquire. Like I talked last week, Duyer's boys are criminally bad at rebounding this year. So if you're looking at like a trade market, you might be shopping the phones and seeing if like a guy like Devin Devon Pina could be available for any pieces. You might see
you took the name out of my
a guy like, I was just looking at the numbers, like even from last year, a guy like David Dupina, get either end of the spectrum there, because he's a guy that he shoots very effectively inside. I think he's only, if my numbers are wrong, correct me, he's only taken 1 3 this year. He's a guy that will get you an inside presence. He's a guy that will rebound the ball on the offense and the defense. There's a lot of guys that could be targets for the Duyer's boys. I want to know if you think there's any targets for another team where they might have some gaps, who might fill those.
Yeah, and hold on, and I will stop talking in a second. But let me just say, I was listening last week, speaking of Devin Devon Pina, okay? And Gion's just throwing that out there like it's the dude's name, right? His name, he has a name, okay? But we've done such a good job. Like the milkman is hilarious. And I almost can't do it on the podcast because it's like absolutely hilarious. But the nicknames are so good. And to hear Gian come on, right, and just shooting the shit. And it was really, really good. I already told PJ, but that interview and like the questions were great. And I'm looking forward to more of those. But to hear him using the nicknames, you know, like it's their actual name, had me dying laughing. So Devin Devon Pina has stuck, and it is what it is. So it's great.
Yeah, I think, what was it, last year we started that, Danny, because we didn't know if it was Devin or Devon. So you just started ripping Devin Devon.
Yeah, like I had said Devin, Joey had said Devon on the post-game show, and we really just didn't know. And I didn't want to be the one to mispronounce his name incessantly, so I just went with both.
Danny typically comes up with, so like whenever he talks about David DePina, it's always David Dupina rather than Devin Devon. So Danny gets all these names in his head and they just kind of stick. The milkman was just something that out of nowhere, I was just trying to be funny, but it honestly is like, it's like the Karl Malone nickname, like the mailman. Like it's just
so
fantastic. Great. It's the best nickname in the league, probably. And, you know, once we get to know more guys, I think that more nicknames will pick up, but that's probably my favorite one so far.
And I haven't talked to Justin, who's been in the league a couple seasons now. And I mean, I still can't tell with Spence if he likes his nickname, so I'm not going to do it. But like, it is important. Like, we're not making fun of it. Like, it's not in that sense. You know what I mean? So if someone, you know, that's what I always try to be cautious of, right? Like, I'm not trying to rag on Spence, and who's playing out of his mind, by the way. We need to have him on, and like,
he's having a really improved year.
Man,
I give him some credit.
But let me just say,
it did come from talking shit,
which is, I mean, it's great. It's great. And he was like, he said something about, you know, when the post got shared the other day, and I was like, this is even better than you not shooting any threes. I made some joke about him not shooting, like I would trade it if he never shot another three again. But he's playing very well. But yeah, I mean, the nicknames are hilarious and like awesome, but never, you know, meant to come across any type of way. So, but yeah, so to Dan's point, I'm hijacking the show, but who would teams trade for? I mean, you guys touched on it last week. Jeff Winchell's an easy one. I mean, I think he can kind of fit onto some, especially the Duyer's boys, right? I mean, I thought that's where you were going, just because of kind of how he impacts the game. But go ahead, Shane. Who's who you know, who's a plug and play piece, if you will?
Well, you took Jeff, and like I said, Jeff can kind of go anywhere. I'm gonna focus on like a bad team. So the Air Mambas, they need like a Colin. They need Colin, and not that Lob is gonna deal him, but they need someone who's gonna go get 30 points a night. And Colin's that for one of those first guys that come. I didn't want to say Jose. I feel like Jose is the obvious choice, but yeah, they need like a Colin Burns on that team to go and get 30 points. They would have to send something pretty good back to Lob. I'm not going to butcher his name. I'm not going to give him a nickname yet, but number 0.
G-Day, that's his name.
Yes. Are we sure?
Yeah, positive.
So G-Day, great young kid, can block the shit out of the ball. So you kind of send some defense to Lob, which if they needed anything, it could be defense. And then you said Colin over to the Air Mambas, and that would make an incredible difference, at least for the Air Mambas. I don't think Lob would go up or down, but
you know, to talk about Lob a little bit, because they have a ton of assets, right? So let's put some reality into it. They're probably never, if there's no emotion attached to this, they're never trading a guy like Jose, right? You're never going to do that. Halfway's probably never trading a guy like Jeff. They probably would look to move a Devon Pina, right? Because he's that secondary big for them. Not that he's not talented, but you're not moving off of a defensive player of the year unless you're getting the King's ransom. And the same thing with a guy like Jose. But something that, like, in reality, right? Does Lob actually, with the Air Mamas being in the position they're in, do they move off of a Mario Valerio, who's a pretty good 3-point shooter, and send him to a team like Lob, who doesn't have 3-point shooting outside of Cody right now? Or like, and do they look to acquire assets and get more picks, right? So do they need Lob doesn't need a pick in the near future. Do they send, a first and a second round pick over, or maybe just a first round pick and another pick a few years down the line, whatever the case may be, for a guy like Mario? Do they send, stuff like that? I think, like, with like a theoretical trade deadline in there, the Air Mamas would have to be sellers at this point, right? Whereas Lob's going to be buyers. They're going to want that young athleticism guy that can kind of shoot from the three. So I think actually it might be the opposite way, where the Mamas might be sending a guy like Mario Valerio, who might be the best version of him you're ever going to get. So now you go get the best possible package that you can for him. I think a team that's almost like in that weird limbo is a team like the Ice Trays, right? You have the players, you guys are like a decent team. You've lost a couple games. If the deadline was next week, do you potentially move off of a Nick Lemoyne and send him to a team like the Duyes boys, who that's probably the perfect fit for him? So like that's all the interesting parts of the league. I don't know how much Ball Don't Lie would be able to sell their players at this point. There's not anybody that sticks out to you on the statistical page, but they might be able to send somebody and get a late pick in like however many rounds the league would be.
I'll tell you what, they stick out to me statistically, because whenever I do the filter, so like sort Z to A so that the high numbers are at the bottom, a lot of them are they're all at the top of the list.
So I think other guys that could be moved in the league, and I want to cycle it back to Joey and Shane and Danny, but like a Hachi might be a movable piece for a game breakers, right? He's your third or fourth guy. And Gian said it last week, he's not a role player, but when you had that much talent, Zach Tartaglia was a role player, even though on any other team he's a monster. Vinny's a role player, and Johnny himself, he's not a role player, but when you have all that talent, right? So that's how that works. So a guy like Hachi, you might be able to sell him to a team like the Ice Trays and get a ton back, so it's interesting to think about how that would work. There might be some teams that don't want to budge on anything, right? Halfway might be in a position like that right now. You have you're up in the top of the standings, your team's clicking well. Do you necessarily move off of something? Do you need anything? No, so Joey, kind of touch on that. Like, what in reality, right? If we're talking about realistic people that could be moved off of a team right now, right? Like, you guys would never move off of Jeff right now. Lob's never going to move off of Jose. We would never move off of a Dez, right? Never move off of a Bry. What would those trades realistically look like?
I think, yeah, it would be insane trying to think about that. And I mean, even for halfway, I mean, yeah, I think it's a full team, and I'm very interested. We can break some news. We're gonna be missing some guys next week against Lob, so you can adjust the line accordingly.
Thanks. You couldn't have
that's insider information. I can't do that.
You couldn't have a missed week.
You couldn't have passed me that bet on the side though. Like,
yeah. So the screen that Dan made, people thought it was like actually from the app, which is hilarious. So, like, you guys have betting now. And shout out Mark Belleville, who like semi-believed.
Look, I'll take the bets.
If you want to send me the money, action. I'll take anyone's action. Don't you worry. I'm good. Ask around. You want action on the Legacy Leagues? Come find me.
All right. Well, we're gonna sanction that real quick. That's over before this gets up there. But no, I mean, I think like some of the teams would be like almost building for next season, right? Back to the trades, like Nick Lemoyne. If that was like a franchise, right? Like, they're probably not going to win it all. And I think that's kind of how teams would look at it. It's like, all right, if we can, maybe move him now, but that would give us a better pick when, teams can only keep so many players. I think that would be interesting. But also just to note, like Gian and some of those players, they could probably play on any team, right? So that's kind of like not the whole conversation here. Like obviously Gian would be great on the halfway crooks or like on the air mamas. Like who doesn't need a player like that who can score like crazy. So I think kind of talking about some of the other players is great because that is the difference sometimes. When you guys talked about the playoffs with Gian, it is different and the game slows down and you're standing there and you watch the end of the game. You're like, oh yeah, this is like there's no more fast breaks. Like there's 5 minutes left and like this is not going to happen now. So teams are going to have to execute. And that's when I'm like, thank God. I say it all the time. Thank God we got basketball players in this league and not football players. And no offense to football players, but the product would look very different, right? If it wasn't former basketball players like making it feel real rather than, athletes from other sports. I don't mean to, shout out football, but athletes from other sports just turning it into a dunk league. It would still be fun, but it wouldn't have those moments of like, oh, this is like this, the crowd's into it. Like this feels like the NBA. This is like awesome, like pick and rolls and like you have to execute. So
that was one of the interesting things to get to like the topic of, the league getting up there in hype now because of, overtime picked up the video, House of Highlights picked up, and even LeBron James picked it up, posted on
Wow, LeBron
King. If you're listening, you're not my favorite.
You know damn well he's not listening.
I know.
But if he is, we're here.
If he is, he's not my favorite player, but he's the best in the world. You can't doubt that. So appreciate you giving us some love on the Instagram. So but like that was a lot of the comments. It was like, oh, this is so easy. And you tried to reply and you were like, no, like we have like hoopers in this league, man.
I had to stop looking at comments because like at the eye level, you're gonna see this like 8.5. I do this to my little cousins. I'm getting bodies. Then you have someone like me who actually plays in the legacy leagues, and I'm protecting the rim at all costs. I'm using like Gian said, I use my body a lot, and I abuse all 6 fouls I have, but I am not getting put on posters often. It happens, of course, 8.5. But everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to be like LeBron and I'm going to be disrespectful. No, you're not, because it's a lot on your body, whether you realize it or not. You're being extra explosive at the age of 30. I'm going to speak for myself, not everyone here. You're destroying your knees and back, and you're not realizing it in the moment. But when you like sit on the bench or when you sit on your couch at home, you're like, I might not get back up from this. So like everyone that thinks it's easy, try it. Put a team in and come see how easy it is, because I promise you, it's not slam ball. You're not getting high up in the air, dunking over everyone. You're playing basketball. You have to have some IQ with it, but it gives the aspect of, all right, if everyone was 6'7", this is what it would be like in the league. That's just what I like to tell everyone who asks me about it. And now you have this notoriety to it where it's like, it's not easy. I hated those comments.
And I think part of it too, like they don't realize that, and Joey was trying to say that in a lot of the comments, that there is a height limit, right? Like, in the NBA, if there was a guy that's 9 foot tall, like Wemby can dunk with like his tippy toes on the ground, right? Like dudes coming in the league, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, do you have guys that, but like, it's not like your biggest guy is 6'4", and it's not that much bigger than everybody else. Like, you're not just getting easy buckets on everybody. Like I adamantly challenge anybody that wants to do it. Like, come let Jose, Dez, Jeff Winchell, let them stand in the paint and go ahead and try to dunk every single time down. It's just not going to happen. Like
I thought it was going to be easy when we signed up. You were saying, you're like, oh yeah, it's 8.5. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be a bunch of washed high school athletes. And I ran cross country and track in high school and college. So my knees are shot. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. Light aerobic workout a couple times a week. I was a bench player and it was not fun for the first couple games, but you get used to it. I mean, it's a learning curve for sure.
And I think when you have guys that are professional basketball players, I mean, we have 3 guys in the league right now, and there might be more that I don't know, but 3 guys that I know for a fact played professional basketball in the respective countries that they played. Okay. So, and let me tell you this, they're a lot closer to the guys in the NBA than we are to them, right? Like,
it's the Scalabrini quote. I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me.
Correct. Yeah. Like Jose is a professional basketball player in Puerto Rico. Charles Correa is a professional basketball player in Puerto Rico. Dez is a professional basketball player in France. Like, that doesn't mean that they go out there and they get 70, 80 points every night, but they coast and get 30. And it's like, when they want to go do what they want to do, they do it. Like, so, and I also agree, Joey, that it's just not a bunch of random athletes. Like, and I think if it was, that would take away from the league, but it's people playing real basketball. Now you're just adding you're just unlocking a piece of your own game that you didn't have before. So you're playing the exact same way you would play on 10 feet, only now instead of taking layups in transition because you can't dunk on 10 feet, you're dunking the ball, so that's really the only difference. And there were a lot of comments talking about this is what the WNBA should do. And it was like, sure, but like, that's like, like it's not giving anybody an advantage. It's unlocking part of people's game that didn't exist. Now, can Joe Seconder dunk on 10 feet? Yeah, he throws down 360 between the legs on 10 feet. Can Jose dunk on 10? Yes. Can Dez dunk on 10? Yes. Are there a lot of guys that can dunk on 10 feet? Yes. That makes them all that more threatening. They become the LeBron James of the league, and you're like, shit, I don't want to stand in the paint and get dunked on. Or, you got a guy that is just getting up now, and like Terrence Gallo is like the Derrick Rose type of dunker.
Explainable how that kid can jump like that.
So it's just like, that's kind of how it is. And give me your thoughts on that, Joey. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're lucky, especially in Connecticut and Rhode Island, like how it worked out with the basketball players, right? So it feels like the real deal, like I said, and that's what's going to be interesting as it grows. Where we kind of just like lucked into that. I kind of knew from being from Connecticut, I knew, so that kind of helped some of the players beforehand, right? And then coming to Rhode Island, like Cody really messaged me out of nowhere with Green Squad and Lob City. So like that, but they're basketball players. Jared is how I kind of got my team together. And so they're all like former basketball players. So that helps. But, a lot of the other teams, like Brian Heston and Gino knew Jared, and like they all, they play basketball in high school. So like that helped to have that core where then like their friends see it, and it's the right kind of group of people initially, where then, like you said, or even like Dan said, other people come in thinking it's going to be light aerobics and it's not, you know what I mean? And that's then they adjust, you know what I mean? They figure that out, and they get a different group of teammates next time around, and they like realize, all right, this is kind of what we need to do if we want to, have more fun and win, because the league is fun. And I think that's why the teams kind of keep coming back, whether it's, not just Ball Don't Lie, but any of the teams like that, where they're like in that second tier. It is still fun. And I've been on teams like that. It's more fun to me to win while you're doing this, but it is fun no matter what, because the rim is lower. And so that's very cool. And a lot of people do shoot. We're going to get more shooting highlights because people have been calling for that in blocks. I know it's a lot of dunks, but that's what, chicks dig the long ball. I don't know. TikTok digs the dunks. I mean,
that was another thing where when Shane was like, I couldn't look at the comments. There was one TikTok where Cody took a three and someone was like, bro's got the ugliest shooting form. And I was like, this is something where context would really serve you right if you knew this man's history in the last however many years this league has been going on.
Well, yeah, and shout out Gian for like responding. I'm sure Shane was too. I didn't see a ton of Shane's, but Gian and the ones
out of this odd respect I have for you, I didn't, because the shit I would say would be vile, and it would bring nothing but bad to you in the league. So I'm like, you know what? Put them on my business. If they want to come find me in the paint, let them come find me, and then I'll talk.
That's fair, yeah, Gian, because I was tagging him in some of them, because he had some highlights, and so I'm sure was getting notified, but he was responding to a ton, which was super cool. And yeah, all the DMs are answered. It's been cool. So I think a lot of it, and it's my league, but a lot of it goes back to you guys doing the podcast when you guys don't have to. I bribe you with t-shirts. Except for Dan, he got screwed out of that deal somehow. I owe him a t-shirt.
I'll give you my mailing address.
There you go. Fair. I'll get it over to you. No one's wearing the freaking shirt on, the show I'm here, but it's all right. Whatever. Shane's in a hotel, whatever. He didn't bring it. It's not that important.
I just got back from coaching summer.
Yeah. Excuses, Dan. Freaking wear the shirt. All right. If I give you a shirt, wear it. But no, I mean, even the guys in Connecticut, I mean, so a similar type of thing happened where a lot of the interns, after they interned, did the podcast, The Weekly Rebound, and they passed it on to another group of former interns. So I've been texting them just like I've been texting you guys all weekend, and Sam and Joe Cad and Connor and Greg, and they all know who they are, but they stay involved and help out. And Sam overseeing the graphics. So in the photography side of things, I mean, he's still very involved. And so PJ was at training night. And this is getting me to my point of at training night every year. It's funny. I always say we're not going to post crap because you never know which post, will be seen, or like, you never know. And you may never know which one was seen, because if nothing comes of it, it just, comes and goes. Right. And so it's funny that, we didn't really have a TikTok before this season, and it was just me like playing around with it. And I, just figured out kind of how to do it on my own. It's not hard, but just it's new, different. And was like, I'll post 3 times a day. Screw it. Let's see what happens. And so like 4 weeks in, that's how Overtime got it. It was just a TikTok of, as we saw, Ant, very good dunk. And so it was a top play. So fair, at least it was, a highlight, but no music to it. I mean, it's so funny that one is the one I didn't even mess with. It's from our Instagram story. You can still see like the tag and like whatever, but that was how I got it to that size, because we didn't have it the right, way for TikTok. So I literally took it from the story, threw it up on TikTok as like my 4th post of the day, and was like, all right, cool. And yeah, so it's funny that I really have always said at training night, like, sure, nobody's watching, like whatever, we get a couple views here and there, but you really never know which one. And so it's funny. It's just funny how it happened that it was a post like that just kind of took off, and it's cool, but it's just the beginning. So I appreciate everything, from you guys and everybody reaching out. It's been very cool, but in a couple of days, it's not. Yeah.
I got to ask you now, because you've got all these comments and you've said all the DMs are responded to. The big trend in comments that I've been seeing is people like, are you in X city? Are you in X state? And we were talking a few weeks ago about not so much expanding the teams in the league, but expanding the states that have an option to participate in a league. So I'm really curious now, like in lieu of the conversation that we all had a few weeks ago, and then now with this increased hype, like how does that accelerate the plan? Like, what does that look like now? What are we looking at for a time frame for this approach to bring this thing to more people?
Yeah, so that was already in the works. Like in the spring, I was kind of getting bored, and I was like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's like the next thing? Because I can never just do one thing. And so like with Legacy Sports Media, which is still, it's like just a sub brand, so people don't get confused, but it's just a media company that enhances other leagues, right? So I've been doing some of that, and I realized that to even expand legacy leagues or really any other league like the ones I've been doing for Legacy Sports Media, the website needs an update. I mean, it's 7 years old, and it still looks good, and like it works and everything's there. But it really is more in the back end of like when other people use it that aren't me, like paying attention to every letter of every person's name. It messes with the stats, and the upload isn't right. Like you guys have seen it sometimes where like a player just disappears, and it's just because it's spelled wrong. It's just, when I started it 7 years ago, it was like, what's the cheapest way I can do this? Like, let's just get it going. And so not that I want to spend $1 bazillion, but now it's like, all right,
make enough money from the league. Don't
yeah. No. But all right. So now like knowing those issues, right, as other people try to use it and use that website format for their leagues that already exist, that was one of the issues where like it's hard to catch everything ahead of time, and then it's a pain in the butt to go in the code and fix the R to an L in somebody's name. So that's in the works. So we're getting the website fixed. It should have a new look, a lot more automated. So then really, I mean, I have the jersey stuff. The website will be fixed. It's finding some facilities. It's getting all the T's crossed and I's dotted, you know what I mean? Like contractually, and figuring out the money side of things. But the website's the big thing right now. And once that's good to go, then like it'd be much easier to kind of do it in other states.
And doing what we do, like behind the scenes with stats and player efficiencies and all that, talking about the historical stuff with the league, that was one of the struggles that I had with the website is if a player is currently playing and has switched teams, if you go back in the index of like a team's roster, nobody's on that roster if they're currently playing for another team. So like you won't find Brian Yars's old stats with the Werewolves or Prestige Worldwide. You won't find Shane's. That team will look like it only had 2 or 3 players on it, right? And so like that's like something that I was like, oh, that's probably like something that down the line would need to be fixed. Like you can't even go back to last year and see like Devon Pena's stats from last year. You can't, like, you can see his stats on his personal page, but if you go to Sin City, he's not there, you know? So stuff like that. That's like the little things that you never really thought would have been a big deal. Cause like, who cares? It's just trying to get them up and done in the cheapest way. But now talking about expansion, like those are the little things that mean a lot, like keeping the record books up to date and all that stuff. So, you know, there's obviously a ton of room to grow. We're doing a bunch of stuff this year with the filming of the games. That's great. We're going to start doing mic'd up stuff. So, you know, Joey and I are playing that out. I'm going to start doing it for the DA's boys. He's going to have the guys start commentating, doing some other mic'd up videos.
That's the idea that you guys got now that I'm gone. Because
yes.
Gold, by the way. I would keep it PG, but gold.
Yeah, see, like that's I thought of it because I was watching a mic'd up and I was like, Shane would be perfect for these mic'd ups. And I was like, let me see how much the Bluetooth ones are that literally hook right on your neck. It's like $25 for 2 of them. And they have like 5-star reviews. And I was like, oh, I'm absolutely scooping up a bunch of these. So we can do on court. Because if you do those TikToks now and you've seen the ones where like there's guys just like going and hooping and they're mic'd up and they're saying funny stuff, dude, and they blow up. Like, I can only imagine like having Spence mic'd up for a game would be fantastic. And you make a TikTok of those clips, you know? So it's really cool. And, you know, doing that stuff is going to make the league more professional. And, you know, we have the live streams and getting those down to a science is going to make the league look more professional. And that piques everybody's interest. When I show my friends that don't play in the league and I'm like, yo, like, look at it. Like, it's like the NBA, dog. Like you have website stats. They're like, damn, like you guys do like interviews after, like this is sick. And it's like, yeah, like that's what interests people. It's better than just going and playing and pick up. You know, if you're gonna do something, you might as well really enjoy it. And you know, some people even on social media were like, oh, this is dumb, like grow up, like there's no reason that those guys say that behind the scenes. And if they played, they'd have the time of their life. Like they'd have a blast. So, you know, like that's the stuff that keeps it fun, is that I can go look at stats and you know, see people's pictures on just like you would in the NBA and rewatch games. And that's awesome to me. And I think that the league is moving in the right direction doing that.
I've said it before. I've said like summer 2019, when we had 14 teams on the ledger, that was probably, to be a player, the most exciting time to be in the league competition wise. But I think as far as like what the league is doing, what was it? Who won? I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, no idea.
Biggest
I think
whoever won that top-notch team.
Biggest competition-wise year, I think. But as far as like
is that
impact,
us?
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't the freaking halfway crooks? I know that.
Well, you haven't won a championship. That was the Dewey's boys.
What happened to the halfway crooks that year? Whoa! What happened to the halfway crooks that year? They met playoff team. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's
funny. That was the year you guys were like,
touch on that, Joey. That was the year that Shane had 15 points shooting from the logo. And I vividly remember you saying, if that's how we're going to lose, I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't feel that way now, but I mean, in the moment, yeah, I felt that way. Shit.
It's all right. You guys wouldn't have won if you beat us, but we weren't going to let that happen. I don't think there was a shot we were going to lose that championship once we beat Jose's team. They were undefeated.
Oh, it was in the bag.
He was this untouchable Michael Jordan God figure. And when Vinny made him a real human being in that game and held him to 13 points, I think everyone was like, oh my God, like once we won that game, I think we all got together and were like, we're winning the championship at this point. We're not losing. Like that was the team that we had to beat, you know?
Shout out to Man Bun Vinny. Different breed.
And not to take away from that.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say, and don't even say that because that's stupid.
Well, I need to even the odds here, but you know, good. I mean, you know, good. Listen, Lob City wasn't able to get there. That was the game. That would have been cool.
No, don't get.
All right,
because there's other years that we haven't gotten a Lob City, and we would have beaten them. So let's just call it what it is. We won that championship. We beat everyone else.
I coach with Deggs. Deggs is a hell of a hooper. He carried that team that year. There's a lot of old Hendricken guys on the team. They're very good, but yes, would it have been interesting to play Lob? Have we played them in the finals? No, we played them to a 1-point game in the fourth quarter without Johnny and Vinny, two of the best players to come through the legacy leagues. Brian Yarst put us on his shoulders that game, and so did Zach. And
you know who else had a good game that game was Nate Kirschenbaum.
Nate did. That was the best game Nate's ever
I think
played.
he had like 10 points in the first quarter or something like that.
And I think if we rerun that game with Johnny and Vinny, there's zero shot that we go back to back that year. 100%.
Yep. Hey, I'm not here to, bring the same slander that you guys bring on the halfway crooks. Trust me. But
when you guys win a championship, then there won't be any more slander. I promise.
Fair. It's fair. But yes, that was a good run. That's for damn sure. But and the league needed it, which is great. Obviously, I don't care who wins unless it's my team, and even for the league, then once I'm out, trust me, I really don't care. But especially with the live streaming, back to that, I mean, it's so to hear Dan be like, yeah, I rewatched the games the next morning. I was just cracking up. That's all he's ever wanted since he hasn't been able to watch the games live. And the live stream looks good. I mean, Spence was sharing stuff of his family, in the Midwest, watching the game on TV, and it looks legit, and they're watching it it's ABC game on a Saturday night. It's so funny. So yeah, that's been a very cool thing.
And see, all of these great things that happen to the legacy leagues stem from one group of guys, and it's the Duyes boys. The league, the all-time hype of legacy leagues was when they had this Cinderella team of scrappy guys burning through the playoffs.
I can end the call, PJ. We can just stop here if you're this is it. That's good.
The Duyes boys were the first team to live stream all their games.
We filled the benches.
We were the first team to live stream all our games, right? And that's what this has turned into. So all I'm gonna say is I think that we're in the history books for sure.
We're owed more t-shirts, is what PJ is trying to say.
All right, calm down. Where the one you got, boys? Jesus.
What if I wore it yesterday? Can't wear it twice.
You can't wear it twice in a row. You gotta do some laundry. I think Joey lives off of Legacy League's t-shirts at this point. He gets them and he says, I'm just going to wear these. This is, if you open Joey's drawer of t-shirts, it's all build your legacy shirt.
When you have something good, you got to live and breathe it. So if you open up drawers for legacy leagues, socks, under shirts, baby right there. So
the amount of people I don't know how much
I agree with Joey in the last 2 weeks.
This is great. All right, Shane, say it with me. Halfway crux. You're going to look good in purple, baby. It's coming.
Never.
Like I said to you in person, Shane, let's get it out. You can sit on the bench right next to me. I got a spot for you. I'll fucking reserve it for you.
You guys need some grit. You guys need some toughness and grit. Would you trade Hanson for me? Because he's
that's
the other end of the bench.
Jared knows.
I know that's what I'm saying. You take two cornerstones of two teams.
No. People see my build your legacy stuff. And they're like, oh, that's cool. What's that for? And it's not, they don't even know, there's no basketball, on the shirt. There's no, so it's cool. That was very intentional and it's cool. So really... the merch has been good. Go get yours now. After all that, people, visited the profile, and not that I'm disappointed at all or upset, but I was like, oh, somebody had to have bought a t-shirt. After all of this, right? People looked at the store, but not one. So it means we got to step our,
I think, Joey, the next step is owning players' image and likeness and selling player jerseys.
We do. So in the waiver.
Great. Joey already
forgot. We sold our lives away.
Yeah. So that's already in the waiver where no, not so much player likeness, but what is in there is the team logos are the league. So if you guys tried to sell, you guys can use your logo, but if you were to go sell t-shirts of your team logo, that wouldn't be great.
What you should do though is if they could go buy a Spence Freeman jersey, that would be unreal. But then
on the back,
you have to put names on the back at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean Carlton, right? Clearly,
yes.
That's
pretty cool.
You got to do what the MLB does for the Little League World Series, and they play a series with their nicknames on the back of the jerseys.
Yeah.
But if I walked in the Johnson Rec Center, I might purchase a Milkman jersey for myself.
The light blue, damn right.
Yes,
damn
sir.
Right.
So to get back to the segments that we wanted to talk about this week, we talked about some trades. We talked about the hype that the league's been getting, which is fantastic. And then something that we really want to talk about that Danny kind of brought up to us this past week was, with all these new additions to the league, with like guys like Gian coming through the league and setting a bunch of records, we were taking a look at what records are in danger, of being broken this year. And so I'm going to pass this one over to Danny and kind of let him talk about that, because I think that's something really interesting, not to psych anybody out that is potentially, a candidate for breaking one of these records, but, just to kind of touch on it and keep things fresh. What do you got? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some records that we think will never be broken. So one that comes to my mind is Gian's 90 points. Is that something that will ever be broken? So, let's talk about that. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I said to you guys earlier in the week that the single game records are a little different. Like, we can't really forecast that because there's a lot of factors at play that determine if a single game record like that 90 points, like a 25 rebounds in a game, if that's going to be broken. But we're halfway through the season, looking at forecasting for some of these records, a few of them, I think it's 7, jump off the page at me. I'm going to start with one that's kind of contested. We were talking about it earlier yesterday. The single season blocks record for a player. Currently, that record is held by Brian Heston, which he had 31 blocks through 11 games. I know Shane is really mad because he finished his all defensive winter 18 season with 30 blocks, but he says he was shorted a few here and there, so he believes he should hold the record. But Brian Heston currently has it at 31. There are 2 people that I consider threats, and I want to get your guys' take on this. Jeff Winchell, obviously a threat. He currently has 16 through 4 games. And then there's Des Williams, who he has 7 blocks through 2 games played. And he's been saying in the Duyes Boys group chat that he wants to go for 10 in a single game, which would break Shane's single game record of 7. So I think, as far as threats go for the blocks record, these are the 2 guys. I want to hear your thoughts on that before I get to a few more.
Shane, that's your dog. I better not hear any slander about that.
I'll go first. If anyone's going to break my record, I would love for it, and I want it to be Des, because he, as we know, incredible basketball player, and he just, when I think of Des, I'm like, all right, he's a bucket. But to see him like going and like pin block and shit, and his reach is it's long, and he's just getting those blocks, I would be ecstatic if he could put up 10 blocks in a game. Technically timeline, but we won't go there right now. I would be very happy if my brother could go and break my record.
Any other thoughts on blocks before I get to the next one?
Yeah, I think he's a guy to watch for. I think if he had played 4 games, he'd be right up there with Jeff in terms of blocks. Obviously, he's on pretty much a similar pace. He'd probably be 1 or 2 behind. I think he'd be at 14, and Jeff is at 16, so he'd be right there. Those are the 2 guys I'd watch for. If they play the rest, if they both play every single game the rest of the way, that's going to be the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year between the 2 of them. Right now, Jeff's in front because he has more stats. He's played 2 more games, and obviously he's fantastic. They're going to both be on the all defensive team, no doubt in my mind. It's just a matter of at the end of the year, if Des is close in blocks and, is like, because I think right now Des is like double him in steals too. So that's going to play a big factor into it. I know the interns in the past have accounted for rebounding as defensive stats when it's like, really, that to me is a little bit different. But if you have if Jeff's sitting at 28 blocks on the year and Des is at 26 in 2 less games played and has double or triple the steals, does that swing the favorite? Probably does. So we'll see there. And but I think that's absolutely the conversation between those 2. Clearly going to be 2 all defensive players. Just kind of see who gets there first. See if either one of them can kind of get to that 25 plus mark. And kind of see their defensive efficiency ratings throughout the year and kind of how that goes. Joey, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, those 2 stand out as far as Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, as far as blocks, and I think Jeff will have something to say about that. I mean, and hey, the good news is they play again, and it was Dez's first game, and he made 5 threes, so that's not a great sign for the halfway crooks. Which is nuts, and it's I don't care if I keep getting sidetracked. Dom Langston on the court recognized and like, knows Dez, and was like, oh, like the beginning of the game, oh yeah, I know him. This is like, I'll try to guard. Like, he was not like scared, but just like, oh yeah, no, this is gonna be, a problem. Which I, was warned already. It's not like, we had any different expectations for him, but it was just funny that, Dom, who, freaking knows everybody, just from his, basketball life. Yeah, playing in both leagues too. Shout out Dom Langston. Committing to the legacy leagues, but
one of only a handful to do that.
Yeah, the other one's in this chat. Crazy.
Yeah, you're the other one, John.
I know. Yeah.
Joey plays in a couple of the leagues and has 0 championships.
PJ, come on,
listen,
man. I
expected that from Shane. And let me let me just say that is how everyone knows it's not rigged, because if that, either I'm not rigging it, which I'm not clearly, or I'm very bad at rigging it. If after, 16 combined seasons, wasn't able to, pull something off. But let me just get it out there to clear the air. I did play in the finals in Connecticut, made a 3 in double overtime, which is not good because that means I was in the finals in double overtime playing. Okay. So people fouled out, and that's why. So it wasn't anything but that. But the season before that or after that, we were in the finals, up 6 with 4 minutes to go, went to overtime, up 4 in the first overtime, and still lost. And I can remember standing there. It's one of those moments where it's like, oh my God. Like, it was against Shocker City and Mike Davis, another GOAT who I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit about, but just leads can evaporate quickly, but you're standing there like, all right, oh my God. Like we're up 6 with 4 to go, like a couple more buckets, and oh my God, like it's gonna happen. And nope, snatched away just like that. So shout out to the Connecticut Legacy Leagues who were also commenting like, we want it back. And so we're trying.
We want it back as well. I said the other day, we want that national championship again.
We need those 2 matchups, the Flint Tropics and the Beach Boys that year. They gave us our flowers. Though. Those were our boys in Connecticut. They were
Flint is awesome. And speaking of that, not to cut you off, so Dez played at Southern. Right. And I found out since posting Dez this past week, he roomed with Mike Bizzuto on the Flint Tropics.
Oh, we got to get that recruitment.
And Dom Migliaro reached out to me, who also played at Southern and on the Flint Tropics with Bizzuto, and they were all boys. And I don't know if they all roomed together. I don't know the logistics of their, living situation in college, but they all played on that team. So they all know Dez and each other. So when I see Dez, I was going to tell him, hey, Mike says what's up. And they've been, supporters of the league, but that's the Flint Tropics. So there you go. Shout out Mike Bizzuto and Dom Migliaro. But yeah,
making connections left and right. I'm going to go through these last 6 or so kind of rapid fire, just because, when we started this call, the sun was out for me and I'm sitting here just because I'm getting some outside time. I've been cooped up, but I'm going to go through rapid fire. I want your guys' thoughts and we'll just kind of go down the line. So next we have highest single season field goal percentage. Currently, the record was set last year by Javon Morris at 78.1%. The current threat in my eyes is David DePina. He's only played 2 games, I believe. He's at 76.9%. And I said earlier, he's a guy that doesn't shoot a lot of threes. He really likes those high efficiency shots right around the rim. If there's anybody that could do it, I think he's the guy. I want to know if you guys agree with me or not.
I think probably I can see him doing it. I don't know if he will, depending on if he plays the rest of the year. There probably should be a minimum games requirement or minimum shots taken for that one.
Yeah, I think for free throws, it's like 25 free throws attempted. Yeah. I don't know. I think I went back and forth with you about the field goal percentage one last year because Javon qualified, and I wanted to make sure we had enough shots.
But yeah, I will say on that one quickly, he and Devin Devampina took some threes last year, and not that he's been hesitant to shoot it, but just like with Spence, is so much better, especially for the team we have, playing inside, doing a lot of those highlights that you see, like drop step dunks, and playing bigger. And he's embraced that. So shout out to him too for that field goal percentage and fitting in as let's shout out LeBron, right? Don't fit out, fit in. But freaking LeBron, man, crazy.
I've got 2 for fouls. I've got 2 relating to fouls next. We both have the single season player most fouls in a season and the team most fouls in a season. For players, we have Robert Braxton of the Rhode Island Warriors is challenging. He has 15 fouls through 4 games. Currently, Brian Heston holds the record at 37 fouls through 12 games. And I think, assuming they get to the semis, the Warriors, which would mean they play 10 games, he would need to continue averaging like 3.8 fouls per game, which he is currently doing, to break that record. So that's one that I think is interesting. And then for team fouls, currently that record is held by the Werewolves at 158 fouls through 12 games. And the threat is the Ice Trays. They have 66 through 4 games, and that's a 10-game pace of 165. I think I looked at the advanced stats earlier. If you see my face light up, the Ice Trays have a defensive free throw rating of 27.64%. So they are sending teams to the line very frequently. So those are two hack-a-shack kind of situations where I could see them going down in the books.
I love it. Any other?
I don't remember the Werewolves fouling that much.
They foul on every fast break. They put
yeah.
the Joey Zocco, where you just grab a
I
guy.
thought that was only halfway.
Hey, only halfway. Let me say on that point, I have considered, the whole thing with that, but it's come back to bite us where, not that there's a bonus, which that could be a whole separate conversation, but like, if someone who like is important and like needs to play a lot tries to do that and then gets a foul here and there, like you end up fouling yourself out. So that's the only reason where like it has come back to kind of bite teams in the ass. So it hasn't, but yes, I mean, listen, it's a smart play and you guys can be jealous you didn't think of it first. But I use, yeah, I mean, it's got to be at least 50% mental where like people just get pissed, but I love it. I think it's great.
Well, I will say we've got 3 more records I think are at risk, and 2 of those 3 are held by the Werewolves or a Werewolves player. I think it's really sad when I was going through this. I'm dreading the day that the last Werewolves or Brian Heston record falls and they are erased from that lone page of Legacy League's history on the website. I think we need to.
How great is that league leaders page though? It's like PJ didn't know about it until 4 days ago when he hosts a podcast for us. Like, dude, it's got every stat and record manually updated forever.
It's
that's fantastic.
It's not the easiest page to find.
Agreed.
I was like sitting there for 20 minutes and I was like, there's got to be a page for this.
Agreed. That's very fair. That's one of the things we'll fix. The menu does hide itself. Even when you're like, are looking for it, it's a pain in the butt, but it's a very good page. League leaders, literally every player of the week winner.
I would have thought it would have been in Rhode Island stats, but it's in the news page. And I was
under like the news tab. Yeah, that's just, I mean, I can move it up, but it also has like the, All-Star game MVP, the All-Star contest winners, maybe the 3-point contest. I don't know. It's all right. Whatever. Okay,
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that next with the Immaculate Grid. Cause
all right, good.
This last week, I didn't have my answer key with me. This week I do. So now I know for sure. I filled out the answer key for every possible combination.
Unfortunately, the Immaculate Grid is going to be something that if you guys get to it, I'm going to have to duck out because I'm going to give these 3 and then I got to go. But so these last 3, most team blocks in a season. Currently, the Werewolves have it at 69 blocks through 10 games. The Halfway Crooks are my threat. They have 27 team blocks through 4 games, and that's a 10-game pace of 68. So they're not on pace to break it, but with the number of guys that they have, I could see them putting together a good game here and there and contending for it. Most offensive rebounds in the season. Currently, the Werewolves, this is the last Werewolves record I'll talk about. They have 139 offensive rebounds in a season. And currently, the Rhode Island Warriors have 59 through 4 games. If they play 10 games, they end up with 148 offensive rebounds on the year. That's breaking by a pretty good margin. And then our last one, most 3-pointers attempted in the season. Currently, only the Fam broke that record last year with 357 threes attempted in 9 games. That is an incredible margin, if you ask me. Currently, Ball Don't Lie has 164 attempted threes through 4 games. And if they play 9 games, which everybody gets 9 games automatically, if they continue this pace, they're going to have 369 threes attempted on the year. So those last 3 rapid fire, what are your thoughts on them?
That's a ton of threes.
Like when you hear the term living and dying by the 3, they're dying by the 3. Both of those teams. I mean, I don't remember. What was the first one? All in the Fam?
That was your boy.
Only the Fam.
Me.
Who?
Little Mikey.
Mike Bartholomew?
Oh, yeah. See, so dying by the 3 is shout out Mike. I got nothing but love for him, but damn, to be in the same sentence as ball don't lie ain't good, or vice versa, whatever way you want to look at it. Shout out ball don't lie though.
My boy Ellis Einhorn holds it down for ball don't lie.
Hey, going back to the trades, Ellis is a guy that if you were planning for the future with draft picks and like a free agency, like acquisition budget, he's a guy that I would love to see in like a role playing setting on a contending team because he can shoot. They take a lot of threes. He's probably one of the only ones that's making them.
Ellis Einhorn, the peak I've ever seen him, he hit a 3 in Johnny Kutu's mouth one game. Johnny was about this close to him and he splashed one. And I was like, oh my God.
And that was the dagger. We lost. We were 2-7 that year. We lost that game against the Swiss
Wow.
Kebabs, 97-95. And it was at his hand.
Yep. With Randy Butler and Dell. They had Dell that year too. And Greg Bell. They were good. They were
Tyler
low.
Barbosa, former
And
intern.
Tyler Barbosa. Yep.
There you go. Shout out.
His record of 30 assists in a game still stands.
It does. It indeed still stands.
That's that Scott Skiles record, right, Danny?
30 assists in a game. I think I have 30 assists in 6 years.
All right, Pete. You're talking with your father, but we've covered a lot. I think that's wrapping it up. We've got another week until Legacy Leagues basketball returns to YouTube. But I want you to close us out and then I'll give you a line.
So that's going to do it for this little in-between week of the Low Post podcast, hosted by myself, Shane Patrick, Dan Ruggiero, and our guest this week, Mr. Joey Zocco, commissioner himself. On the store next week will be the Roger Goodell t-shirts, only with Joey's face. We're going to start doing that as a fundraiser for the league, raising some money for the league. I think people would probably buy them.
And then right next to it is the Spence clown face shirt that I talked about with the nose. So there you go.
Yes.
We have some really good photoshoppers in here. I think we should put Spencer's face on Carlton's body. That's you. Listen,
We'll get him doing the dance on there. We'll get him
if
doing the
we
dance.
do that, then even better.
I'll get on it tonight and send it over. I'll send the mock-ups tonight. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. Joey, I don't know if you've been a part of this yet, but Danny's going to leave us with one of his infamous quotes. Danny, go ahead. Take it away, Footman.
Yeah, I think this is a big weekend for my girl, Taylor Swift. Speak Now, Taylor's version coming out on Friday. And I think of the song Mean. Someday I'll be living in a big old city. And all you're ever going to do is turn in every week and listen to the Low Post podcasts. So with that, have a great night. Keep on listening, folks.
Unbelievable. Just
Yeah. Wow. We're gonna talk.
Danny, that must be your worst one yet.
Don't doubt it.
Oh man.
This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be?